Welcome to Last Week in AI. Today, I'm not going to go over the weekly news. We're going to get into something a little different by asking really smart people really smart questions. And I'm so excited that the first time I'm doing this, I'm joined by my friend and former colleague from Warner Music Group, Leon Farrell. Leon, would you tell us what you're up to now?
What's up? Well, listen, first and foremost, thanks for having me on here. I've
Woo-hoo!
been loving your content on, LinkedIn for quite some time anyway,
Thank
and
you.
I always kind of pick out nuggets of wisdom from your stuff. So yeah, to be part of it is fantastic. So yeah, as you mentioned, we both worked together previously at Warner Music, and I've been working in the media and entertainment space probably for maybe what, 14, 15 years. First starting in advertising on the publishing side. So doing that for quite some time, then did a 10-year stint at Warner Music in various different guises, overseeing like a mini label, first coming in and whipping our data into shape, so helping building A&R tools, that kind of stuff to give us a real competitive edge. And then the last couple of years was spent more on servicing our artists, so ensuring that they have great revenue streams based on the rights that we held for them. So VIP experiences, brand partnerships, e-com, all that good stuff. So more of a kind of commercial strategy role that I kind of left with. And then made the jump to the podcasting space, which has been absolutely explosive in growth over the last couple of years. So Stephen Bartlett and the Flight Story slash Diary of a CEO team, they were building what they kind of
No
saw.
slouches in the podcasting space.
I mean, yeah, they are absolutely phenomenal, and I kind of that's an understatement. They are absolutely killing it. So yeah, they have been building a roster of creators, so they kind of almost see it as the major label of the podcasting world, and they have these incredible blueprints slash templates when it comes to delivering and building IP and monetizing those audiences. So they needed someone to kind of come in that understood how to monetize IP. So I made that jump and was over there for the best part of, 6, 7 months, which was incredibly exciting, really fast paced. They really use, AI across everything that they do. So that was refreshing as well to kind of go to a company that really embraces it. But then I've had a real change in the last 4 to 5 months. So not many people know, but my background, I've always been a painter. So classically trained oil painter from the age of 12, 13 years old, went to art school and have always painted on the side. Had a corner of my living room set up with an easel where I paint, but it was always a hobby, and I'd always probably take around 3 months to probably do one painting. And then the last, I guess, the 4 to 5 months, I thought, you know what, Liam, why don't you actually really have a solid go at becoming, a painter slash artist? I've always understood how to build brands and how to build stories across socials for other IPs for other artists. So I thought, you have your own creative output. Why not kind of have a real shake at that? So got a studio and have been prolifically painting for the last 4 to 5 months. Had my first couple of exhibitions in the last couple of weeks and been selling paintings and setting up my own e-com store. So really in my artist entrepreneurial bag at the moment, and it's really exciting and there's loads of things on the horizon, but it's a big shift, but I'm loving life.
I love it so much. Like when you told me this, because I've known you for years, like in a Warner Music Group corporate setting. When you told me this, I'm like, a what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put up some of your artwork, and I'll also include a link so everybody can go check out your work, which I love so much. I feel like it's like if impressionism just like merged with the digital world, like that's
Yeah,
how I describe your work, and I think it's so cool.
appreciate
You're
that.
you're also still managing an artist or artists, right? Yes.
I mean, listen, once you're in music, you can't really kind of leave, no one really leaves music kind of once they've been in it for as long as I have. So yeah, so currently managing an artist and she's absolutely killing it. So yeah,
What's
I
the
think
name?
that
What's her name?
her name's Celine. So yeah,
Celine.
it's awesome.
Okay, for everybody to check out. I feel like some of our former Warner Music Group colleagues are going to watch this and be like, "What? Leon's a painter now?"
Yeah, that's a really common reaction. I mean, even close friends and family. I haven't really broadcast it. I've
So
never really been on social
good.
promoting it, but yeah, that's a common reaction for sure.
All right, so let's get into the question. This series that I'm launching is called Human or AI because I really enjoy any sort of competition of any kind. So
Yep.
the question, Leon, human or AI, who wins in creativity?
This is such a loaded question. And I'm gonna get absolutely nailed by both sides of the aisle for this. Um, I've always been open to trying new things. I think it's one of those real watershed moments where there is no going back. And I think people are figuring out how this fits into their life, both professionally and personally. And I think framing is key. Some people look at things as maybe a replacement or duplicative of what they're currently doing, and some see it as additive, almost as a kind of as a tool. And I think that's what I've really been coming to terms with, is how I fit it into my life, considering that I've had a career in corporate, but then also creating work as an artist. And I think yeah, artists or creators have always had tools, whether you're a videographer and you're using Final Cut, or you're, other kind of software packages, or whether you are someone, let's say, that's an office-based clerk, you've always had your word processing software and everything else. And I think for something like AI, which is incredibly powerful, I think this touches all different types of skill sets, including creatives and creators. So for me, I think I've always tried to look at it as, how does this fit into my life and my work stream? And in terms of,
Wait, so how does it fit into your work stream right now?
yes, I mean, the way that I've been experimenting with it is, I've been typically using it as a way to help expedite some of the tasks which are relatively monotonous and haven't been necessarily that creative historically. So, for example, when it comes to showcasing your work, and typically you would put your art on a wall and take a picture of it and put it on socials. I've been experimenting with more, I would say, left field, innovative ways of showcasing my work. So I had this, I would say, guerrilla marketing slash kind of content piece where I made up a fictional holiday that I went on to a hotel in central London. It's more of a staycation at a hotel called Brushington, which was, really kind of on the nose. But essentially kind of created this fictional hotel where my artwork was popping up. So I would create my artwork, I'd take pictures of
I
it.
love that.
Instead of like just placing it on a wall, and there are other platforms that that artists do use for that. One called Art Placer, where you upload your work and it kind of, mocks it up on a wall. I was like, how would it actually turn up in ways which is, I guess, consistent with my lifestyle, my taste, touch, and tone, the places that I would like to kind of frequent. So kind of create this fictional hotel where my artwork would feature in the lobby or in the restaurant. The carpets in the restaurant had the prints from one of my pieces, or let's say the menu might have elements of my work, or it might be in a coffee shop, as part of the hoardings on their counter. So I kind of created this fictional world, this fictional hotel, using AI, so things like Sora and obviously ChatGPT, etc., to mock up email confirmations and just the world, to me kind of checking in, and the room and the restaurant and everything else, to do something which adds to, I guess, my creative output in a way which doesn't replace the painting in the studio and the creating of the work, but help elevates it and tells that story on socials in a way which I couldn't do previously without having something like AI as a toolkit.
I like that because that's like the guerrilla billboard placings,
Yep. Yep.
it's like the digital version of that, which is
Yep.
so cool. But it feels like through that explanation, you're more team human. Is that
100%. I think
Okay.
I would say I'm quite traditional. Well, I guess there's a couple of different things. There is the perspective from the artist, and then there is this perspective, at least in the kind of art industry, from the consumer slash buyer, the client. And I think for me personally, what I get out of art is the practicing of the art. That's what you have, they're called art practices. And I think that journey of trying to master something that allows you to express yourself in a certain way. I think the journey is, I would say even more important than the actual finished piece at the end of it. So for me, I think expediting that process, that journey of the trials and tribulations of working on a piece, going back and revisiting it, the ritual of, mixing the paints and everything that comes with priming a canvas, going and getting it framed and selecting the frame and everything else. You can't replicate that. I don't think you can replace that with something like AI. From an artist's perspective,
Well, and
that
I think also the buyer gets a lot of value from all the effort that you put into it.
Yeah, and I think that is a very contentious point at the moment. I mean, you take some of the biggest artists in terms of revenue generating artists currently, someone like Damien Hirst, for example, who's been incredibly transparent about his practice. His practice, he has a legion of artists, of studio assistants that are the ones actually applying the paint on the canvases themselves. So he's almost kind of running his practice where he's almost the CD, the art director of sorts, where he creates, let's say, the IP, the identity, briefs the studio assistants. They obviously have a wealth of works that he's produced historically to reference in terms of the output that he wants, and they will go and create it. But they would still sell at a kind of high price point, even though he hasn't actually applied any of the brushstrokes himself. Takashi Murakami, again, is another one who's been very transparent with his practice. You go to his studio in I think it's in Tokyo, but he again has legions of artists, sort of studio assistants that are again the ones that are creating all the works, inspired by himself, but he signs off on them and they go for, a crazy amount of money. But I think ultimately,
Okay, this is fascinating because we had a chat last week, and it's giving for me right now because what would be the difference of just training an AI at some point on Damien Hirst to recreate his work? I mean, if he's not the one who's actually applying the brushstrokes and everything you said makes perfect sense because that, frankly, that's how much of fashion works today. But um, we had this conversation. A lot of artists are thinking about this, like AI can recreate in your own look and style, like thousands of your work, right?
mm,
Whereas you as an artist take a finite amount of time to produce something. So
mhm.
if if he could reliably have an AI recreate his work without all the humans touching it, is that okay? Not okay? Where do you land?
Um, I think there isn't. I think it's not a binary okay, not okay. I think there is some people that it will satisfy. For example, I mean, you take Prince. Everyone typically, I won't say everyone, but collectors, they want the original. Whereas some people are happy with a print, or some people are happy with a poster. There are varying entry points to having something, having a piece of, um, I would say, art for a particular end goal. So if you want to, let's say, decorate your house and you want to have things like that are aesthetically pleasing for your walls, a lot of people they are looking at how do I get the look for the cheapest possible, amount, the lowest price point possible. And I think when you get to a certain level or stage, a la some of the biggest artists that have got critically acclaimed, universally loved works which, for the original would cost five figures, for example, there is an audience, a clientele to satisfy en masse. So I think producing prints it obviously satisfies that. Um, so I think there is there's a time and a place for mass output, to satisfy varying levels of, let's say, clients and their needs. In terms of, like in Damien Hirst's example, to your question, in terms of if AI could just, replicate his work and, at an incredibly high clip, just kind of create kind of, at en masse and pump out works. I'm sure that there's a lot of clients out there and audiences out there that would be absolutely fine with that. I think they wouldn't be looking at the provenance behind work. They wouldn't necessarily be focused on has the artist put the time and the effort into the creative process because all I care about is the output. And then you get the collectors. And I think a collector, I wouldn't say a purist because that comes across as quite elitist, but I would say some people, what they want to do is hang a piece of the artist on the wall. And when I say a piece of, it's their blood, their sweat, their tears, their soul onto the wall. And I think that's where they hang the value on the time, the battle that the artist has had with that canvas. They want to go and look at, let's say, a work in incredibly, incredibly close up, and you can see the energy translated in the brushstrokes. You can see the energy in the movement, and that's what they want. I think a lot of humans, I think every human, I would say, values the human experience. And if that is infused into something, a lot of people are willing to pay more because of the energy that's gone into that. Again, to kind of maybe make a bit of another correlation with music, that's why someone's going to pay £150 to go and watch a live performance on stage by an artist that literally is sweating on stage, putting the effort in to perform to you. You can go and listen to the record, you can go and watch a YouTube video, but
Mhm.
actually having that experience perform live and that energy put into it by the artist, a lot of people value that because that is the human experience. So I think people value the human experience. So if you can prove provenance or people understand the provenance, I think people are willing to pay more. And I don't want to kind of reduce this to purely, in terms of what people will pay versus what they won't pay. But I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
I get it. I would also say the thing that's coming through while you're talking is the risk to the artist is that yeah, I'm just going to use the word purist because I kind of liked it and attached to it. The purist may look at what Damien Hirst would do. For the record, Damien Hirst hasn't done this, but if he did decide to use AI to reproduce his works, they may downgrade him as an artist because they now have a feeling about an artist doing that
Mhm.
devalues even the high priced original work on their wall because you know what it reminds me of?
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm in New York City, you're in London. I don't know if you must have the people who sell knockoff bags. We have them all in
Oh yeah, of course.
Chinatown. So
Canal
like
Street,
when you
yeah,
see the like knock up, literally they just put a blanket down and there's a bunch of knockoff Chanel bags. Like I every time I walk by, I'm like literally a Chanel executive is like, oh!
yeah.
Because it completely devalues the brand. They're just like chunked up there on the ground on a blanket, and I'm like, ugh.
That that's a perfect correlation as well. I think it could be the same leather, right? It could be you're getting the same calfskin, for example. It's
Yeah.
done by a human. They could have studied the techniques of the chateau, the maisons in Paris, and kind of replicated those, to an absolute T. But I think again, it's the provenance. It is kind of the story behind a lot of these grand maisons that have been around for, let's say, 200-300 years, and the coach works and everything else. The skill set that they've been mastering for generations to get to that point. And I think that is why people would pay 5,000 US for a Chanel bag versus $50 on Canal Street. It could have the same leather, but I think there is a value attached to the time it takes to master something and the conditions of how that comes to be. So that's a perfect correlation.
Well, so with that, I'm gonna deem you Team Human and thank you for participating in our first human versus AI. Who wins in creativity? It's Team Human, according
Team
to
human.
Leon.
There you go.
Thank
One
you,
nil to
sir.
listen. I really appreciate it. I could obviously talk to you all day about this, but yeah, this has been on my mind and a lot of artists for quite some time. So we all thank you from the artist community. We all thank you for for doing this, for putting this conversation on because yeah, I think there is no right and wrong answer. Conversation
Well, that's
with
why I look forward to the comments.
yeah, I'm going to be absolutely looking at this like an eagle. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks, Leon.